Growing up, my sister and I had a GameCube with games like Luigi's Mansion, Super Smash Bros., the normal ones, Wind Waker, of course. But we also had Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. Around that time in my life, I wanted to be a visual artist. I was drawing all the time, and I really liked things like Looney Tunes. I would sketch out the characters and draw action lines, even though I didn't really know what action lines were supposed to be signifying. I would just add them because I saw them in Looney Tunes, and I was like, hey, if that's what professionals do, I'll do that too. Just stuff like that. Which is why it's so weird to think about how often I would boot up Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door and just let the introduction sequence play through its entirety. Because most games I didn't have nearly that much patience with. I did that sometimes with Melee, not really. Almost never with Wind Waker. And I don't think Luigi's Mansion even really has one to work with, but I always did with Paper Mario. And in that way, I think that's the first piece of music I ever fell in love with. But in the back of my mind, I didn't even really recognize it as that, because music isn't really something I paid attention to. As far as I knew, I was a visual artist, and that's what I was going to do, and I still do sometimes, but obviously music is my priority now. And I think that game is what kind of kickstarted that in my brain. Because even if I didn't recognize it, I realized I was subconsciously taking in this music, which is gorgeous, by the way, absolutely beautiful if you haven't heard it yet. But subconsciously, every time I listened to that piece growing up, I think it inched me more and more to be interested in music, because suddenly, after a couple years of playing that game, I was suddenly in middle school, and completely out of nowhere, like nobody expected this, not even myself, I just decided to join the music hall. And I got in, I was a chorus member, and then next year I was one of the lead roles and things like that. And I realized that music is something I wanted to pursue, and I kept returning to Paper Mario and listening to that piece and wondering why nothing was as satisfying to me as that piece. The answer is, of course, because I was looking into musical theater, and that's not where you go for substance, really, but I was still confused. Even out of musical theater, I would listen to the stuff my mom listened to, or the stuff my sister listened to, and just none of it really hit me. Not even other pieces in Paper Mario hit me quite like that first one. So I started looking more and more into actual musicianship, as opposed to just strictly musical theater and, theatrical performance and things like that, which led me to being accepted into a charter arts school where I was able to major in vocal technique. And in that way, I also had just as many classes of music theory and music history and stuff like that. And even still, I would come across a couple pieces here and there, some Schubert, some Brahms, where I was like, okay, hey, this is scratching a similar kind of itch, but it's not quite where I want to be. It doesn't fill me with exactly the same kind of satisfaction as that Paper Mario piece does. Still not yet. And then we started looking into French art song with composers like Chanson, or Fauré, or Debussy, all the big names. Later on, I would go on to discover characters like Piwa, or Lecu, or Séverac, so on and so forth. And I could tell I was getting closer. I was slowly starting to find what it is exactly that I want. So I went up to my teacher at the time and I said, hey, what is it about French art song that is so much more appealing to me than everything we've been covering so far? And of course what I was asking is, how can I get closer to finding this piece of music from Paper Mario, and how can I find out how to find more pieces similar to it? Because I was on the right track, I just needed a little bit more guidance. And what he said was, okay, well, it has a lot to do with music theory, of course. Things like scale modulations. And it flipped a switch in my brain. I said, scale modulations? Okay, let me look into those. So of course I started finding things about the Lydian mode, and Mixolydian mode, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, substitutions, like switching over to the minor key for just a second for the sake of having that texture. And I realized, oh, this is what I've been wanting this whole time. This is what Paper Mario has been doing to me my entire life, and I had no idea, and this is exactly what I want. Which is a weird story, I think. It's weird that a single piece of music from a video game is what kind of pushed me to keep exploring what there is to explore in, like, the entire musical language, to find exactly what it is that satisfies me. And I feel like, I guess it's weird to say, but I feel like if I never played Paper Mario, I probably would still be a visual artist. Primarily, I mean. I still do draw, but not as, like, the main thing I do, of course. But I feel like if I never ran into that piece of music, I'd be on a completely different course in my life. And it's just weird to me that just a video game I played when I was little is what pushed me all the way to the course of being a classical musician. And it's not even a classical piece of music. You know, sometimes they'll put in, like Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata or something in a video game or things like that. But no, nothing like that. I recognized that there was something in that piece that I wanted that I couldn't find anywhere else. And I kept digging and digging until I found my answer. And of course that's why I like French music so much now. It's because it follows the same kind of principle of, like, hey, let's just do literally whatever we want all the time. And that's what the Paper Mario piece does. It just suddenly, oh, E-flat major? How about C-flat major for just a measure? Which is, of course, just the lowered 6th scale degree built on using that as the tonic for, you know, things like that. It's easy. And then within that, using the raised 4th, which would be, you know, F. So in that way, it's kind of like pseudo-Lydian almost, and then there is genuine Lydian later on with actual proper A natural instead of A flat, things like that. You get it. You understand, I'm sure. But I don't know. Sometimes I just think about that, and it's weird that I can pinpoint exactly. It's weird that I can pinpoint exactly one piece of music that set my entire life in action. It's kind of nice, though. Sometimes I just go back and listen to it, and it's just amazing how much it's done for me, I think.